And we're live. Welcome to the Gordox Pub, where
Welcome.
oh, that caught me off guard. Ah, I forget what I was going to say. Gosh darn
Where
it!
the?
Welcome to the Gordox Pub, where we have the best memories of that one thing. Ah,
Welcome.
yeah. So
Keep telling
Friday was
myself
my
I'm going to get an extension for these earphones because the wire keeps literally getting in the way while I'm trying to draw. If I turn my head to talk or type, it drags the microphone. So it's kind of crazy. Sorry, but
uh,
like, the struggle. First world problems, right?
yeah. Friday was my birthday, so I'm
I
already feeling
know.
old.
Happy birthday.
Thanks. And
You're already feeling old.
yeah,
How
so
young are you?
I'm old enough. There's this whoever had my classroom before me put the schedule, like they use these stickers to put the schedule on the whiteboard, and I've tried, it's the wrong schedule now, and I've tried to remove them, and it's like it's taken out chunks of the whiteboard, and I was like, all right, maybe I'll just put a picture up there, like something weird that just for no reason, like Martha Stewart. And none of my seventh graders knew who that was. Not a clue.
Right. Why would they?
Well, but I was like, like the white lady that does the commercials with Snoop Dogg for the lighters, and
It's pretty bad when you have to sell it, right?
well, what's worse is then they're like, "Who's Snoop Dogg?" And I was like, "What? Guy just carried the torch in the Olympics. He's like on The Voice or something now, or I was like, he's on like everybody's record all the time. Like
Yeah,
he
that's
just
that's funny.
ah, like it was just. Why are you just making me feel extra old, all of you? So, ah, it's bad enough when I have like my transition to the middle school means that the point in my career when children of my students are now my students, well, that's been drastically cut, and so I come in. I think you had my mom in class. Oh, okay.
That's beautiful too, right?
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be worse when it's like, I think you had my grandma. Ah! Oh, well.
Well, they are getting younger and younger these days.
I guess. Uh,
They're having kids younger and younger. Hmm.
oh, there was some video my wife was watching, and I
That,
forget what like. So this woman said her name, like whatever she was watching, talking about her daughter, and uh, the mother's age was only 10 years different than her daughter's, and they were saying something about a teenage pregnancy, and my wife's like, "No, no, 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 that was not teenage. That's before teenage." So,
she was pregnant at 10?
yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of disgusting.
yeah, gave birth at 10, which means it could have been at 9. And I was like, "Yeah," and
Yeah, yeah, that would have to be,
this
right?
show is trying to, because the woman's much older now, and but I was like, yeah, my wife and I were just like, uh, the math on this does not look good.
Yeah,
uh,
it's pretty gross,
yeah.
actually. Pretty gross. Kind of people think that shit's okay.
I don't know, but the fact that they were, I don't know. I mean, whatever. I guess it wasn't the point of the show, but at the same time, I'm like, you guys aren't gonna.
Yeah, but why? Why wasn't it the point of the show? That's pretty fucked up.
If I had to guess, because again, I'm not watching. This is me passing through rooms.
Yeah,
so
I don't think I could watch that shit.
So I think it was like a. What do they call it? There's some show my wife watches or videos of on YouTube. It's a British show, where it's recordings of the ER or whatever they call it. They don't call it the ER, but yeah, it's just so you get all kinds of weird situations in there and weird injuries and whatever. So I think it had something to do with the daughter was hurt, like in an accident, and therefore they were just so the information was just matter of fact, like the daughter's 16 and the mother's 26, and they just kind of let it go, and that's when my wife, because I was just walking wait, what? Because the math does not look good.
Yeah, I've got a problem with more than just the math.
Well, yeah, but it's a recording of a British TV show. There's not a lot to do. It's just one of those things.
Well, right. It's just pretty freaking gross.
Yeah.
It's like somewhere in the Middle East, they're lowering the marriage age to 9 or some shit.
Yep, that's gross.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking gross. And that sounds like exactly what we were listening to. If you're talking about a woman that gives birth at 10.
Yeah, I know. That's the kind of stuff. It's like, and that's why I'm thinking it was the British show, just because of the dynamic that's there, that's more predominant there than it is here. And that is all I'm going to say about that.
You mean the acceptance of other than their laws?
Yes.
They are kind of rioting in the streets. Like when Trump got elected, they were rioting in the streets shouting Trump's name like he was gonna come and save them. But I think that it's heralding a return to normalcy is what they're looking for. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that don't really remember normalcy because they didn't grow up with it. However screwed up that sounds, right?
Yeah.
But it's also true. If you think about it, how long ago did Obama get voted in?
2008.
All right, so anyone that's been born and raised since then or was too young in 2008 to know what was going on don't really know any better. They don't know what was normal. So whatever people are telling them that's spreading fear in them,
Right.
they just accept because they have no
Point of
basis.
reference.
Yeah. What am I smearing all over the place? I think I have to literally wash this ruler or something because I'm getting all these smudge marks. And I shouldn't be. All right. So what I'm doing is putting in some pipes to show that there's something underneath where he is. I wanted to show there's some dimensionality to this hole because and I needed something to block off all the black. I haven't had anything up here that does it, so I might just put a border in there because if not, I mean, we're going to lose some of that.
So just by the way, please know that I deeply appreciate your artwork. I just want to point out that you said that you were going to basically lay some pipe, show how deep the hole is, and get rid of some of the black.
Okay.
Well, to my 13-year-old level of maturity.
I didn't actually say I was laying pipe. I said I was putting some pipe in. That doesn't mean it's better, but that's actually what I said. So. Since we all know by now that I have relatives that are not white,
Yeah.
it's obviously not prejudice.
I think it somewhat indicated or implied quite the opposite.
I don't.
Okay.
You can make of it what you want, but you know better. So in case everybody's wondering where I put my ruler there, if you didn't watch last time, I've got a vanishing point right here.
Anyway, I was just saying your original co-host accepted my friend request on Facebook. It was a bonding experience.
Is that what it is?
Well, I think he's hilarious. So.
Okay, I don't know how bonding experience and hilarity are the same thing, but
Well, it was just nice because
okay.
he had posted something about how he doesn't like to accept just anybody. I was
Uh,
like, oh,
well, yeah, you're not just anybody. He knows you.
yeah.
He doesn't know you well, but he knows you well enough. He knows that you're not a scam.
I'm just a really, really long scam. It's the long game. So I saw a thing that said that James Gunn had claimed that the actors from Guardians of the Galaxy, many of them were signing with DC,
Ooh.
and I just it's kind of weird. Like on one hand, I don't care, like whatever. You still have to make a good movie. I didn't go to see Guardians of the Galaxy because the actors in it. I went to see because
Well, no, okay, go.
I went to go see those movies more about the story and the characters, and those actors did a good job. So cool, but I'm not. It wasn't. It wasn't the actors weren't the draw. It was the concept that was the draw for me. And so when I hear about oh yeah, this is going to be great. They're going to come work for the DC DCEU, whatever it is, or DCU.
Whatever. Who
Then,
cares?
I'm like, I still haven't shown me a concept I care about. So
I'm not even interested in watching his Superman because, like, the only thing that I got out of it that's new, that's not going to be just a rehash of every other Superman,
yeah,
is that he's gonna have crypto in it.
yeah,
Like, I don't care about Superman's dog. I thought that was bullshit to begin with, and
yeah.
since when did a dog escape from Krypton? How did he escape? The story is just bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, I even have a hard time swallowing his cousin Supergirl, but whatever. It's a small matter. I guess there must be something on here because a paper towel. There's a little bit of smudge on there. And I'm getting smudge all over the place where I'm blocking it off with a paper towel. So, Right. Yeah, I'm not excited to see it.
Me neither. James Gunn by himself is not necessarily a big draw for me. Like, I think he did well with Guardians of the Galaxy overall. I don't want to take that away from him, and I don't mean to. I just, it wasn't something. There are certain directors, just about anything they want to put out, I want to go see. And James Gunn isn't one of them. But that's just personal preference. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. Like, as far as my opinion of James Gunn is not really high because of how he presents himself and whatever. And Guardians of the Galaxy was good, but he had material that was good to work with. And I'm sure they weren't like, just go crazy with it.
all right.
There are things that I would change if I was the director. I would choose different people to play certain characters. Although, like, most of the character or the people he chose to play those characters did well, but they're not necessarily who I would have chosen for them. just depending on the character. And believe it or not, like, was it Michael Rooker that played Yondo? Or,
Yeah,
yeah, that's not what Yondo looks like.
I know.
So no, I mean, I'm just talking about my opinion. Like that's not what I would have chosen. I think he did all right. Don't get me wrong, but I don't really feel like that was the character I read about in the comic book. And to be fair, I didn't really read a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy. I read some issues. Um, I don't know. So, what do you think of my idea with uh, the Blood Guild guy being like kind of Master Blaster all in one?
Sorry as I choke on my own spit. Apparently, I can't figure out how the whole talking thing works. Uh, I'm fine with it.
I just, it, it occurs to me that if I could make myself a foot taller, and in better shape, I would, right? And
Okay.
I also been thinking about uh, a term for these kind of basically alternate bodies. Like I'm thinking shell, like Ghost in the Shell or uh, phone shell or shell from a video game if you want to change the look of your tank or whatever. What is it called? Shells, right?
Uh-huh.
Unless there's another name. If there's another name, then maybe that'd be the way to go, just to not be choosing that.
Well, I think it's sounds perfectly acceptable, and until there's any reason not to do it, why not? You know what I mean? Like, sounds like a good idea, and nothing in it that I can think of contradicts or contravenes anything that I'm planning or have planned. So
it really doesn't matter, right? It's just something that I was thinking about. And
yeah, but sometimes those things.
Have you ever heard of like little big man syndrome?
Yeah, I think.
Well, because he's kind of an antagonist right now, right? Like,
Right.
do your job and all this other shit, and he's a complete asshole. What if he's a complete asshole because he's short and he gets no respect at the office?
Right.
Like, he only gets to wear this suit when he goes out in the public or whatever. I don't know. Like, I'm just giving him a reason.
That's fine. And what I think about those kinds of things, those kinds of background bits of information, is it helps flesh out the story or guide details that you put in. So having a plan for it, it's just one of those things that, all right, I haven't thought about it that way, but that's a cool idea, and if it fits and works and it shows up in some other way, we have this. You know what I mean? So I say keep it. There was that last short story of mine that you read. I had done world building on that. There's stuff in there that never, ever, ever, ever touched the page in any way, shape, or form. But I had the idea, so I threw it. I was like, whatever, I can put it in there. And if something had come up, that's where I would have gone to. Like, oh yeah, I got this thing, and so that's I hoard those ideas. So, if you have something like that, let's talk about it. Works for me.
Yep, I was just like there was nothing for him. Like there was nothing for the uh, Blood Guild guy, and the more we talked about him in this particular scene, the less important he was. He was just a character to basically tell him to do his job, or maybe oversight or whatever. And I got to thinking, what could we do to make him more personalized? Like, I don't want to give the idea that all short people are have a little big man syndrome, but it is something that we could play with because there's plenty of room to play.
Yeah. So I saw online that the response for Skeleton Crew has been generally positive, and I would have to agree with that assessment. I thought it was. I would have liked to have binged to watch more of it. So the fact that I have to wait until Tuesday, the fact that I am waiting, I'm like, so yeah, it's actually a good sign.
Okay. Well, I've actually been tempted to watch it. I've picked up working on a rebounder to lose some weight and get some health. Like it's a little bit easier to get some cardio on that rebounder than try to find time or a way to go places that are uh, climate controlled
Right.
during this time of year. So I've been thinking about like watching that while I'm working out. I'm normally like I'm listening to a book while I'm working out, and I also am normally like listening to a book uh, lately setting somewhere around the Hundred Years' War or something like that. And I ran out of credits, so I'm listening to what I've got left, and that's at the moment it's Tony Hillerman, um, which is the Navajo Mysteries. The
Okay.
series Dark Wind is based on that. Um, and I'm like I read those e-arcs That's advanced reader's copy for the layman. And usually I get them so that I can give a review of them. And right now I'm reading a mystery that's written by an English director. So, but the format's terrible. Like, well, I mean, whoever actually formatted the book for Kindle, like the first word of the chapter, there's one letter on one line, and then it goes to another line, and then there's some sentences that are jammed together into one word, so you
Oh,
have to figure out what some of them are. It's not the actual story. The actual story is pretty good because it's kind of it's a murder mystery, but it kind of ridiculous that it's being investigated by a prime minister, um, but it's an interesting spin on murder mystery, so it's not just any old detective or whatever. All of this, and then I'm going to come back through and erase half of it so I can put the bars across his face.
oh.
But as I keep telling people in the David Finch fan server, it's best to draw the figure first and then dress them, then put the uh, what's called drapery on them. So this is a different light scheme. I think it makes it a little bit more interesting on the page.
Tell me if you think this is a stupid toy idea.
Oh,
Okay. So I had this thought of an action figure series similar to, say, like He-Man or something like that. But the gimmick is that they have different like mech suits that they come with that are like science fiction version, or maybe we could do fantasy versions. I don't know. But basically, like you'd have one character that has a body that convert, like you just put him in a, becomes a centaur, becomes a merman, becomes a harpy, whatever. Like a sci-fi version of it. It's like maybe the centaur version looks more like ATRT mixed with Ripley's power loader or whatever it's called. The thing she uses to fight in Aliens and lift boxes, but whatever.
I was trying to hold off on having to turn the board, but
I was like, it was clear you were thinking about something, so I just shut up because you were like just staring.
well, because the measurements are kind of strange.
Okay.
I'm trying to get them to be as lined up as I can, and to make it work,
Yeah.
I have to have a center line to work from, and then like a distance between those two lines that I can measure, right? If I want to make it all look equal.
Yeah.
I do like this little pencil eraser or eraser pencil, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
It's got a pretty fine tip, and I can actually trim the tip at an angle to get a finer point.
Oh yeah. Didn't you have an electric eraser?
Yeah, it just doesn't do. First of all, I haven't been able to replace the battery in it.
No.
And I really don't think I need it to do what I'm doing.
I was just wondering.
I'm not using inks, and a lot of those erasers were created to erase inks because they literally remove material from the paper. Like all erasers do, but some of them more than others, and that one way more than others. All right. So from the side, all right. Okay.
There she is. Not a dog, one guy. That is a dog. He's like that all day. And a dog.
Okay, I've got a mute for a few.
Oh, yeah. You haven't muted, by the way.
I haven't.
Nope.
That's weird because I turned my mic off.
Oh, well.
Let's see. I'll have to do it the old-fashioned way.
There you go. That's weird because there were a couple things. I updated my computer today, had a Windows update, and for the past I don't know how many weeks, when I first get on StreamYard, it's been the wrong camera, and I had to manually switch it. And I was like, all right, whatever. I mean, it's not a big issue. It's just something I had to do. And then tonight, logged in, bam, it was back. And I didn't think anything of it. I mean, I noticed it, but I didn't really think anything of it. Just, like, okay, you computer, do what you want to do. But then earlier, I was, like, before you had gotten on the stream, or in the background, whatever, the green room, I had, you had already been on, because you were there. You were in the background, I guess. You were in the green room. But you were just, I don't know where you were. Anyway, so you weren't on stage yet. And I thought the music was kind of loud because I was just hanging out. And I went to make it quieter, and it did not respond. Like, I could watch the bar go down, but the sound on StreamYard was like, yeah, that's really cool. You're not messing with us. So I wonder if there's been some kind of weird update with StreamYard. It's not talking to audio the same way.
I was speaking to nobody.
Well, like, okay, this has been a while.
Yeah, it's like you see that ruler slip. Like this
I
is
did
what
see that.
this is what I have to deal with. Recalcitrant straight edges.
There goes Vicious.
Yeah, he doesn't take too well to anyone when they first show up.
I always find it funny when occasionally the dog gets confused when one of us comes home.
Yeah, well, that happens. That happens with him too, but he's a big coward. He wants to bark and scare off anyone that's smaller and could be scared, but he doesn't reinforce it. He doesn't like bite or whatever.
I thought it was funny because earlier today I put the dog out. She started barking, so I went to go let her in, and I'm looking out. I just kind of knocked on the door to let her know I was there because she wasn't up on the porch. She was still at the end of her rope. So I wanted her to know that I was there in case she was done. But apparently she was not, because she was just barking. Then the neighbor's dog would bark. Then the other neighbor's dog. It was like they're having a conversation.
Right.
And then
They're all talking shit to each other about who can kick whose ass.
yeah, pretty much. Then she starts coming back towards the door and gets distracted by something that's on the ground because she starts sniffing all around. Which, whatever. I was in no rush. But then she barked at the ground. And I was like, what the hell is wrong with you, dog?
Well, maybe something was going on under the ground.
I don't know. She gave up pretty fast.
I guess somewhere along the line, I decided that all blood kill guys need to have faces that you want to smack. Because that's what we did with the original guy, right? Like, we want to make him.
That's funny.
Boy, are you gonna have fun inking this. All right, I gotta take my sweatshirt off now. It's too warm.
You want me to try to find some sexy jazz music?
You can do what you want, bro. Well, you know, within legal limits.
Yeah. It's the part that stops me.
Yeah, just gotta take the sweatshirt off. It's getting a little bit warm in this because I've got a curtain closed around me too.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna mute for a minute so it doesn't sound like anymore than it has to.
Although I could just make that same noise and be like, oh. But I won't, just because. Because I value the auditory experience of our viewers. Viewers like you. By the way, for those watching, now's a great time to like, subscribe, thumbs up, do the dance, cha cha, whatever. Whatever the algorithm gods like. It's free for you and helps support the arts.
Do you know about Reads Across the Nation?
Reads across the nation?
Yeah,
No.
that's something I actually want to kind of push forward. It is. Let's see if I can find the link real quick. It's a very worthy cause for anyone that served. Reads Across America is what it is.
Okay.
So it's a nonprofit organization with a mission to remember the fallen, honor those who serve, teach the next generation the value of freedom. And what they do is every Christmas, they have a convoy that starts up north in Maine where they make wreaths on their farm. And they're sponsored, but they go to Arlington to lay wreaths on all the gravestones. So I think it's a worthy cause. I'm kind of sentimental little fool about people who served and fought and died for our freedom.
Yeah.
So I really kind of want to push that cause. And you can sponsor a wreath anytime. And I'm going to put that in the chat. Reads Across America.
Whoa.
It's a very worthy cause. And anyone that appreciates those who fought and died for our freedom, fought and died for other people's freedom, I strongly recommend or would appreciate. Like I haven't served. I have family that served, and I'm a very great appreciator of those who have served. So it's a worthy cause, and I'm in it. I'm into it.
So you know that that insurance guy, the CEO. That,
The other guy assassinated.
yeah, I am. I have no love for insurance companies. Um, but I have a hard time cheering on assassinations of businessmen.
Yeah, it's like he didn't create the diseases or whatever that people are dying from, and I'm sure he doesn't want that to happen, or he didn't want that to happen. Um, but that's the way insurance companies are run. If they're making money, that's the way they're making money. I don't like insurance companies actually, uh,
Like I said, I have no
because
love for them.
because you brought that up. I don't like them because I don't believe that they actually do what you pay them for. Um, Most of them deny your first claims, initial claims. There's a there's an old couple that has had their house run into several times, and the insurance don't pay for it. Like he's an 80-year-old guy, and the woman's like 69, 70, and they just had their house run into and smashed open. Nobody cares. So I definitely can see how people get upset about the insurance companies not paying out.
Right.
That being said, I don't support murdering somebody because you're not happy with the policies. How about not paying them, going to a different insurance company, or saving your money up? You can pay that same amount into a private bank account and then use it when you need it.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
You can't do it with cars, but
I just. I don't know. I'm conflicted about the whole situation because, in the grand scheme of things, I we don't know why he was assassinated. Although it certainly does seem like he was assassinated.
well, actually, if you read what was written on the bullets, on the casings, it's pretty clear why they were assassinating him. But
Well,
it's not something like he didn't. Like I said, he didn't create the diseases. He didn't promote the diseases. He just did what insurance companies do, and you got to know what they do by now. I mean, it's not like a secret that they're going to deny your claims. That's the first go-to thing that they do is deny your claims.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff that insurance companies do that I just like. When you have to get pre-authorization, it's like, wait. I went to a doctor that you said I should go to, and that doctor said I need X treatment,
Right.
but I can't get it until someone who's not my doctor and probably isn't a doctor at all anyway makes a decision. But that's not practicing medicine. That's even though they override my doctor. And that's that's the part that bothers the hell out of me.
Yeah, I don't agree with it either. But the thing is you're not going to change the way that they do business by shooting them. You're going to change the way they do business by lobbying for them to change the way they do business, or the laws to change. Because, yeah, I agree that it's totally unfair and sometimes hugely unjust. But it's not one person's fault about how that works. That's the way the system works. And if you don't like the way the system works, you know how to change it. And that's not how to change it. What that does is reinforce that you're a nutball, and people that have those claims makes them seem like they're a nutball as well. It's unjust. And it's even more unjust when you get to that, right? So I, so I'm not. To be clear, I'm not supporting the way insurance companies do business. But what I'm saying is, as long as they're within the law, you got no right to do what happened. Um, if you want to change the law, I support trying to change the law, because it's they definitely are unjust, and it's the only business that I know of in the country that you have to support. Like, you have to have insurance. Uh, you have to have car insurance. You have to have renters insurance. You have to have all these kinds of insurances. And it's the only business that you literally have to patronize. So I think that's kind of bullshit anyway. But
You have to have health insurance.
well, I mean, there's other types of health insurance. Like, there's state health insurance, and there's other. But, and I'm not saying you don't have to have health insurance. What I'm saying is that it's. I guess I'm supporting the idea that it's kind of bullshit that you have to support that business.
I agree.
Like, any other business in the United States, you don't have to support. Like, you just do something else, right? You don't have to bank. You don't have to do any of that shit. But you have to pay insurance. You have to have insurance. When a cop pulls you over, you have to prove you have insurance. It's like that. It's a scam, and then you pay into it, and obviously they reject you instead of paying out, right?
Yep.
So it's a total scam, I believe. There's not many insurance companies that do pay out like they're supposed to, and none of them that I know of. But since I don't know all the facts and haven't done the research on it, I can't say that none of them do, but none of the ones that I know of do.
Well, they do have an odd incentive structure where it's better for them to not do their job than it is for them to do their job.
Well, yeah, because they're making money if they don't pay out, and they're losing money if they do pay out. But that's something I don't know how to put that, except for that it needs oversight, really. I mean, there should be some kind of specific, special organization that makes sure that they are not, scamming you.
Well, in certain states, you have, I think it's called a public insurance adjuster. It's either public or private. I always get confused. But they're basically there. It's one step shy of a lawyer, and it's normally cheaper than a lawyer. But, I mean, they're still getting their cut. But they're supposed to know how to make, like, they're there to represent you with your insurance company, and they're trained to make sure, but you got to pay for them, and it's only in certain states. So in states where they're legal, they make very good livings. So kind of shows you that insurance companies, the only reason to make that kind of thing illegal is because insurance companies don't like them.
Right.
And they lobby well. So we just had our water heater go out, and I mean, part of the problem is it's from the 90s, so it was just old. But it was also on the same circuit as our stove. And so I don't know if the stove, like ever since the water heater went out, the stove has kind of like not really worked the right way. And so my son was going to make meatloaf, but our oven doesn't warm up that much. And it was going to take forever. And I was like, why aren't you trying a crock pot? And he's like, how's that work? I'm like, I don't know, but I bet you it does. So I did a quick Google search, and yeah, there are recipes and stuff. And he's like, cool, I'll just make it. He was all excited to make it in the crock pot. And it came out great. And I was like, yeah, I don't know why you heat up the whole oven for that anyway. Except for it's cold and we could use the heat, but, you know, still, it's kind of nice knowing. Plus, I like working with
How cold is it over there?
What?
How cold is it over there?
Today, it's pretty warm. It's like 41 degrees right now.
Yeah, it was 27 today here.
Yeah. I think yesterday it was in the teens. Like, it's been wildly fluctuating. So, one of the days, it was either Thursday or Friday, it was, I was a little worried. My car wouldn't start, and I really didn't want to walk because it was freaking cold. And I felt bad because I saw students walking to school, and I just thought, ugh.
Sucks to be you.
Pretty much. And in case anyone wants to know why I wasn't kind and stopped and giving them a ride, I'm not allowed to.
Because they're fucking students and they're assholes.
No, I'm just saying it's not legal. Oh, I don't know if it's not legal, but it's not contractually. I'm not supposed to do that.
Yeah, be alone with a kid.
Well, yeah, be alone with a kid, give a kid a ride. Like, there are forms and stuff that you have to fill out. It's kind of crazy. And sometimes that's a good thing. Because sometimes
He protects you.
Yeah. I've had parents like, can you just take my son to my house? It's like, you don't know me. You don't know how bad I drive. So, you know, and parents struggle with whatever. I get it, but I just, it turns into a mess pretty fast. I started watching Rebel Moon, the Scar Giver.
The second one.
Yeah.
I made it like 20 minutes into it and I was like puke.
Yeah, I don't even think I made it that long. Like, what's who's the guy that played Hannibal Lecter that voices the robot?
Anthony Hopkins.
That's it. Anthony Hopkins was still talking, and I was like, this is just an info dump of god awfulness. And I just was like, all right, I can't stomach it. Plus, I still say that a civilization that has figured out faster than light travel shouldn't need to steal a planet's wheat.
But can they make a cup of coffee? That's the important thing about that. Yeah. Where's your holodeck?
Yeah.
That wouldn't work for erasing.
Whoopsie.
that's a pen.
I gave my 7th graders a quick lesson out of writing down the bones last week about going through and choosing the right tool. And it's literally the only thing I got out of one of my writing classes was that, yeah, if you're going to be doing writing, your tools actually, you want something that's going to keep up with you and that appeals to you when you do it. There's a tactile sensation. Keyboards have them, pens, pencils, all that stuff. It's a different feel. It'll change, the process. Not that I can't work with other tools, but if I can, I'm going to choose the ones that I think work best.
Right.
And
or you're most comfortable with.
yeah,
Really. Like it's the same thing with art. Like people always, ask about different techniques and different whatever. I mean, like you can try out anything you want, but there's no reason you can't just perfect what you're comfortable with.
well, but my students will they'll grab a nub of pencil off the floor and then wonder why writing sucks so bad. It's like, well, for one thing, you're hurting your hand. If it was painful, I wouldn't want to do it either.
Right.
And it's just kind of logical, common sense stuff, but it really is a paradigm shift for them. They just don't understand that my job is not to create tasks for them. It's my job to help them get skills so tasks are easier.
I'll be back in just a moment. I'm going to take a slightly late midstream stream. I'll be right back.
Don't interrupt your stream. Don't cross the stream.
I'm not going to cross them. Don't worry. I'll be back in a minute. And I'm back.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
Welcome.
I feel a lot better, I gotta tell you. I feel like I reached the flow state. You know what I mean?
Like progressive flow. So I just did some life drawing
Yeah.
with Anthony Wheeler Wednesday, and it made this pose possible.
Okay.
Well, this area of the body actually was one of the models was actually I have my life drawing picture right here. It's not, life drawing is quick, so it's not like a long time, but gave me an idea of where I want the muscles to go in the back and the side. So it makes it a lot easier to sketch from memory, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did you hear that Ildris Elba was cast to be Man at Arms in the Masters of the Universe live action film?
Okay. I like it, DeSalvo. I don't know. I guess it doesn't really matter much in the grand scheme of things.
Probably not. I don't ever have any great faith that a live action of anything from my youth is ever going to be good.
Right?
And part of that is because it's a near impossible task, because you have to please fanboys who dreamt of these things forever. You know what I mean? So it's it's a challenge, I think, for anyone. But then when you start looking at the types of characters that you had in the 80s and the types of plot lines and general characteristics that they pushed versus modern Hollywood, and yeah, they just end up ruining it. And it's not that I necessarily want a nostalgia piece, but and whatever that animation thing was with Kevin Smith, where basically it became all about Tila, it's like, what? You just that's okay. That's obviously not what anyone wanted. So whatever. But the idea of a
Yeah,
big, strong, masculine hero.
I
Oh,
don't have a very high. I don't have a very high opinion of Kevin Smith when it comes to art.
that's because I think he sell his left testicle for enough money.
Well, I don't care about that either. I don't care about commercialization. That's not how I make that kind of a decision. But like he's super woke because that's the thing. And when that woke goes away, you're going to see him do the same thing Jeff Bezos did. He's going to flip flop and then start supporting Trump all of a sudden because the worm has turned, you know. And I've never really like. There's none of his movies, and I know other people are going to disagree, but there's none of his movies that I'm like, oh, that's an awesome movie. I want to watch it again and again and again.
Have you ever
I
seen
haven't.
Red State?
No.
Oh, let me tell you, Red State. Oh goodness, Red State. Although I think it's kind of a controversial. Well, I know it's a controversial film, but I'm. Oh goodness, I'm telling you, it is. It is pretty intense, and I was kind of shocked with where it went. I was shocked with. I mean, I would say that's my favorite Kevin Smith film. But again, I mean, I also know there are people who absolutely hate it. So
Well, I never watched it because I don't like Kevin Smith's stuff. So
yeah, it's just the weirdest.
I don't have anything against him or people that like him or whatever, but it's just not for me. That's not my thing.
Yeah, that movie is so much not like Kevin Smith. It's weird. But I mean, again, if you don't want to watch, don't watch it. But it's intense. Let me put it that way. So
Yeah,
it's definitely
never really was even curious. So I mean,
well, it doesn't have like the characteristic humor or anything like that. It's a pretty straightforward like suspense horror thing. It's kind of weird coming from Kevin Smith.
and that's probably another reason that I wouldn't be interested in it because I'm not a big horror fan anymore.
Well, there's
They don't. I don't know. I guess I outgrown that.
okay.
Well, I mean, so like when I was younger, I got a thrill out of good horror. You know, I don't get that thrill out of good horror now. It's just the same slasher and whatever, or gross, or I just. Like I said, anyone else can like it. That's fine. To me, that's not my gig anymore. It was at one time. I liked that a lot, but that was an at one time thing. I don't think I've ever done him from the profile, let alone from a profile climbing down, head down. Yeah, horror is a really hard sell for me. It used to be a lot easier of a sell for me because I got something out of it, but now it's just, I don't. Now, by the same, or on the other hand, or whatever you want to say, I there is some attraction to dark fantasy, um, but just straight out horror, not really.
I have, yeah. Well, yeah. Most horror things, I don't think they're real horror. So, like,
Right.
it's like, you're, yeah. And most of it relies on stupidity. So,
Yeah, I'm finding it harder and harder to accept that in my fiction as well. I just did a critique. I actually just joined another group. I think you asked something in the room, and there's a critique group that was suggested. I don't know if it was on your question or just in that group or something, but so I joined it. It's a free, it's not like you have to pass anything or whatever to join it, but I read somebody's story last night instead of writing my own, which I should have done. But I really do like helping when I can help. So the story wasn't bad. It just, I think he's trying to get into an anthology that's based on Bon Jovi songs, which
I've seen that call.
But when I read the story, it was really more like the 310 to Yuma, except for none of the characters had any real depth to them. Like every one of them were kind of stock characters. The bad guy was a stock bad guy character. He was a drinking, whoring, gambling, Soviet murdering thief.
Okay.
Yeah, like you can see that anywhere from XXX to James Bond to whatever. Right? It's like everywhere that they have that kind of thing. And the victim in the story, not the victim of his robbery, but the victim that happens to be in the story, is a Russian prostitute. And she has no friends, no family, she's just a Russian prostitute. And
they are the loneliest of prostitutes.
Well, like the point is that there's no strong characterization, and there's a guy that does show up, and he's kind of likable, but again, I mean, he's talking about killing the bad guy because he's like the train station guy. He's talking about killing the bad guy because of all the people he knows that the bad guy has killed. And the marshal is a woman space marshal. She's a woman New Texas Ranger.
Yeah.
I really don't want to give too much away about the story, but so she's Native American, even though it's not really American. It's a planet. New Texas is a planet.
Okay.
But so I can do this without, the only thing that makes her Native American is that they say that she's Native American. She's a certain tribe, and she's got a feather in her hat.
Of course.
Well, I'm not
Native American. You must have a feather.
Well, I'm not trying to knock this guy. Like I said, I don't that's not my purpose in saying it, but this story is kind of a fun romp, but it's nothing. There's nothing new or nothing deep there.
Yeah.
So the one guy that shows up that has kind of a personality that you kind of like, he has this big machine gun thing, but he basically is wiping out all these bad guys, and I'm wondering if he really wants to kill this bad guy, and he's wiping out the whole gang anyway right now. Why didn't he just go after him and wipe him out on his own? Why is this even a story, right?
Yeah.
If this guy's a super badass and he's killing all these guys and then he's still going to get home for dinner,
Right.
Why is it a story? And then, I read something that I realized I had made a mistake on early on. We talked about this before, about how it's really easy to confuse the fact that a strong female character doesn't mean that she's Hercules. It means that she's got a personality, a past, friends, a life outside of the story, right?
Yeah.
But his character didn't really have a life outside of the story, and it was just super tough woman. Okay, so this guy's a big badass, so that they have to go and hunt people down, and the whole time that she's trying to take him to a train to get him to a port to get him off world or whatever, he doesn't do anything to try to escape or fight back or until they're almost the end so that she can make a threat. You know what I mean? So it's she's just imposing, and it's she doesn't appear to be a good guy at that point. She's just kind of a shit. I mean, the bad guy's a bad guy, but the good guy's not really super good guy-ish. It's he was trying to do a female Walker Texas Ranger, in space. And then lay it across the 310 to Yuma format. Which, you can mix two things like that and get a pretty good story sometimes. And
Yeah.
his prose wasn't bad. There's only a couple of things that I had brought up prose-wise. But it was just the lack of any characterization, the lack of any depth in his characters. And it's kind of a kill for me, because I would have probably otherwise enjoyed it, but there was just nothing to them. It was kind of predictable because of that, and it really did go a lot like you're reading another version of 310 to Yuma, but didn't have the personality that the bad guy had in 310 to Yuma. Didn't have the personality that the bad guy's gang had in 310 to Yuma. That was the thing about Elmore Leonard, is that he made the bad guys people. He didn't just make them archetypes. And that whole story basically was archetypes. Archetype hooker victim. It was a Russian hooker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she actually didn't have to be a victim, because she's a victim because she helps this new Texas Ranger capture one of her clients, right? So, I don't know. It just kind of seems like she kind of brought some stuff on herself, and then as a victim, she's actually doing stuff that's going to get herself killed. And as a Texas Ranger or whatever, you're not going to I wouldn't, be running out after someone that's really trying to get themselves killed. That's not something I would be doing, especially when my mission wasn't them, right?
Right.
I mean, that happens all the time. People fall by the wayside like that, but let's see. Gotta unload a bunch of stuff to get to my small circle templates. So wait a minute. Here's my bigger circle templates. Ah. My bigger circle template is in an unreachable position. Let me see if I can reach it with my back scratcher. My back scratcher. And the earphones cord's getting in the way of everything.
Of course it is.
Yeah, right. Ah. Circle template. And this was a Father's Day present, I think, from Eli. It's really kind of cool. It has a mount, but it fell off the back of my desk.
Okay.
Can you see it?
Hold on a second. I make things bigger. I couldn't pick a better dad. That's nice.
Yeah, and it's a guitar pick, so goes on this little stand, and it fell off. It does frequently, but I've had this for years. Yeah, that was an exciting adventure in nothing.
So lately, I've decided that the bane of my science fiction existence is
Your science fiction existence?
yeah. I hate having to figure out, like, okay, so if you can't go faster than light, generally speaking, so all right, when like our nearest star, assuming you're not talking about our sun, but like the next nearest star is like, I don't know, like a little over 4 light years away. And, so if you're going near the speed of light, and plus there's the whole thing about, time dilation and all that stuff. It's like,
Right.
and just wrapping my head around all of that so that I can figure out how the stupid world works. I hate that.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I don't write that kind of science fiction. It takes a lot of math. I don't want to write it.
Well, I try to avoid the math, but so it's a
But
little
that whole
fuzzy.
concept is based on it.
Yeah, it is. So it's one of those things where I'm kind of looking at, all right, like, how far would this? Yeah, I hate that. I hate it. But I also feel like it kind of, it also opens up some interesting possibilities. It's just that you have to kind of get it all figured, at least for me, I have to figure it out. So
Right.
I had this
Definitely.
idea that, okay, your ship can only go near light speed, but can't go light speed. Fine. So if you're going to explore other star systems, you're going to have generational ships.
Or fold space.
Well, so then I was thinking I wanted to make wormholes with gates, but that means you still have to, at least for this, if that's how it's going to work, then yeah, I got to have a generational ship has to go out and build it, and then it can be faster than light. But first, you got to have someone go out and reach whatever the destination is. Well, I guess it's a wormhole, so it's not really faster than light. It's just cutting space, whatever.
Yeah, it's a fold space. You're piercing
Yeah.
a hole through space.
So that's fine, and it's kind of an interesting, just because I had this idea, and I've always been fascinated with the idea of, like, if aliens visited, we're no longer the top technological species. What does that do? How does that feel? So it's kind of neat. When you reach the destination, a lot of times you're like, that's because no one else is building gates. That means you are the top technological species, but it's going to be your kids or grandkids that turn on the gate, and when they do, you're no longer going to be the top technological group, because whatever comes in has had like millions of years to develop, or at least hundreds or something, depending on how you want to do your time dilation.
Well, yeah, and it depends on how you want to, how advanced you want to make those races. Because, like, so, just as an example, because I'm thinking of it when you mentioned it, that's, it's like Native Americans being Stone Age when our explorers came over,
Right.
With the Age of Steel and sail and came in and...
Right. So it creates an interesting, I think, setting. Which is fun. So, whatever, but it's still one of those things where it's like, I've always found time dilation kind of hard to wrap my head around.
Right?
And part of that's because it's an idea that's not easy to perceive naturally. So therefore, relativity, like, I get the concept, and I understand. Like, I've read about it. I've had it explained. I get it, but that doesn't mean it feels right, even though I know it is. So, or at least it's more likely right.
Or you can accept it.
Yeah, it's definitely got enough evidence that I think that it's probably right. It's just, again, it's abstract and not easily readily perceivable. So, whatever. Yeah, I'm probably going to end up on some FBI watch list, because part of the fascination with encountering a species, like when you have two races or species or cultures, I guess cultures will be good enough. That'll cover everything. You have two cultures that come into contact, and one is clearly technologically more advanced. To me, that's inherently interesting by itself.
Well, if they're not humans, I think that's also a race.
Well, yeah, I'm just...
Because, it's not just a culture. if they're not humans.
Well, the reason why I said culture is because if you think about like in Star Trek, the Federation isn't just humans, but it's definitely a culture that kind of is wrapped around all these other cultures.
Yeah, it's not just humans, but it's also a whole bunch of different races.
Right. So, but
I
whatever.
don't think they're afraid to say race. So.
Well,
I guess I don't think you should be afraid to say race either.
I'm not afraid to say race. I think culture might cover more possibilities. So, I mean, that concept of that meeting is interesting, but it also kind of folds into the Great Replacement conspiracy, or not, depending on how you feel, but whatever. But here I am. I'm having to look. Like I'm looking up some of this stuff, and yeah, I kind of feel like the antagonist is, for this idea that I have in the setting, the antagonist would be kind of an isolationist. Like his argument is going to be, we turned that gate on, and we're second-class citizens like this. You know, everything that we've done to the people that are around here is going to be done back to us again. You know, it's just that kind of isolationist willingness to do whatever it takes to maintain power and authority, even if it means ultimately hurting yourself. That's an interesting character, I think. I don't know. But I just find some of that stuff. I mean, that's kind of, the story is dependent upon time dilation to some extent, and not being able to go faster than light normally. And so I like that it has to be science fiction. That's one of those things where Wolverton had said something about it before, about if you're going to have a science fiction story, it needs to need to be a science fiction story. So if it could have taken place in a modern setting, but they have, space cars and laser communication devices and whatever, phasers instead of a pistol, that's all you've done is give it the dressing of science fiction, but it's really just a regular story. Then he kind of thought that was a bad technique. Commercially, I think it works sometimes, because you look at a lot of Hollywood stuff and you're like, oh, look, they just dressed this up as a different genre, but it's still the same, a lot of stuff that has been based off of Kurosawa films. They just changed the setting and it's the same basic story. So I don't know.
So I don't know if I've heard it put quite that way, but I have heard that the story should be not coincidentally. So there should be a reason for it to be science fiction or fantasy or whatever. Trying to think of how to word it, how I understand it. It's like it's a self-contained story. Like it's fantasy because there's an element, a fantasy element, or a science fiction element that is at the core of why the story exists in the first place. So if you made your story about the effects of faster than light travel on criminals, that's still science fiction. And if you have alien races and that's just some window dressing or props or whatever, but you still have a core science fiction plot, science fiction key question, science fiction element that everything is wrapped around. I think it's still legitimate science fiction. Same thing with fantasy. Like I think fantasy, as I have always been given to define it, was myth, monster, or magic. The three M's. And I like much more writing about myth and monsters than magic. But it seems like nowadays everybody wants some kind of magic system, magic whatever, to be fantasy. But it doesn't have to be. Anything that's not reality, that's not science, can be fantasy. And they consider alternate history fantasy as well. So, I don't know if that's just, saying the same thing you're saying from a different view, but
It sounds like it.
it might be, but it just sounds different to me from that angle, where you're just saying, it doesn't have to be like, it can be anything. It can be still as much baloney as you want to, and still be science fiction, just so long as it's a question of this science changes the world, right? Or how it changes the world, or how it changes day-to-day life, or people, or even, situations, or how you have to rob a bank nowadays because there's so many whatevers, so many ways of locating you, so many ways of identifying who's doing it. So, you have to have a scientific answer for all the science that's going to catch you.
Well, I don't think Wolverton was, or me for that matter, or necessarily you, but was saying it's not science fiction if it does this. But he basically said, I think, as I understood it, it just wasn't. It was never going to be a good example of science fiction. It might be science fiction, but it doesn't necessarily mean it, or fantasy. But like, if I wanted to write Road to Perdition, but make it on a space station or a star system, and turn it into a space opera, it might be entertaining. But it was like, it's not really going to answer any science fiction questions. It's just dressing up a story that was clearly told in 19 something gangsters. I'm going to say 20s. Yeah, because I think Al Capone's one of the. He's not in the movie, I don't think, but I think or the comic book, I don't remember, but he's mentioned. So whatever time period that would be, 30s, 20s, somewhere in there, and just be, you can put it in speeders and spaceships, and instead of driving a car across country, you could be the sun's piloting the ship to different planets as they rob from banks. But I think Wolverton's argument was more, that's just not going to be great science fiction, because it's really not a science fiction. It's not much of a science fiction story. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Well, Ben Bova, who ended up being was an agent for science fiction for a long time,
Right.
and he was an editor at Asimov's when Orson Scott Card sold Ender's Game. And he said the difference between fantasy and science fiction is that fantasy has trees on the cover and science fiction has bolts and steel.
I know, but
So, I mean, it just depends on, well, ironically, Ben Bova is like the only hard sci-fi author I've ever read that I really like the story. All the other hard sci-fi authors that are, touted, they're boring as hell to me. Ben Bova created realistic characters that I kind of cared about. Well, I cared about. So it's memorable. Like I read Mars, and I know there's a lot of other books that he did, but Mars was kind of similar to Red Planet without the murder scheme. And it was about like the first mission to Mars and what it would take, and so there's some theoretical like false gravity and how you achieve false gravity, and there's a very diverse cast because they had to vie for their positions. And I really liked it, but he basically, I mean, to me, he was saying that you don't have to do it this way, but here's a great example. So, like, what I read of his, that was enough for me to go, this is really good sci-fi. I don't write sci-fi. The science fiction that I write is definitely more along the lines of space opera, which is not sci-fi, it's space fantasy. It is. I mean, that's exactly what it is.
I'm not going to get into the argument. Like for me, it's like
it's Star Wars. Star Wars was space fantasy when it first was created.
I agree. 100%.
That was the example. There's another one that I can never remember. That's also loose sci-fi, where you could have faster than light travel and fighting aliens and stuff like that, and it's not space fantasy. I just don't remember the name, and it's been driving me crazy every time I try to look it up. I get either space opera or just a regular science fiction, but it's not, kind of drives me crazy because I know that there's another term and I keep missing it, but it's like what Dune is, and it's not supposed to be space opera. It's supposed to be based in science, whether it's the scientific theory or whatever, or it's natural sciences or whatever. It's still science.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what it's called. It's driving me nuts too, because like we were talking about writing a story along that lines with pirates, right? At one time.
Yeah.
Just never got there, and I can't remember what it's called.
I don't know.
Well,
I find it kind of funny because hold on.
when I look up the subcategories of science fiction, it doesn't even exist in those categories. And I learned about it when I was learning about writing from authors that were published. So,
Well, some of the categorization, part of that's marketing inspired.
all of it's marketing, but yeah.
So, I mean, some of it I'm just like, when people start having arguments about, because there are people who will argue that Star Wars is science fiction, and I'm just like, okay, sure, whatever, but
Only those people who think somehow insulting for it to be space fantasy.
yeah, I know, and I'm just like, okay, whatever. In the grand scheme of things, I just care it doesn't work. But some of what I think Dave Wolverton was talking about with your fantasy story needs to have a reason. Like it needs to, or at least it should probably have a reason to be fantasy or a reason to be science fiction. it kind of starts falling into like those, does it answer a science fiction question? Does it, okay, whatever. That kind of stuff kind of plays into a lot of advice about how your story should have a thematic meaning. And
Yeah, theme.
yeah, and I'm okay with that, except for then I also think about what Orson Scott Card said about how that kind of thing comes after the story's written.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, so
Well, both are actually learned in their fields.
yeah,
But I think that you can be learned in your field and still have an opinion that's contrary to somebody else, or slightly different, right?
well, I think it goes to show that it's not really settled stuff, but yeah, there are competing theories, and I think it behooves an artist or a writer to explore those competing theories and be open to interpretation and exploration, just to see, because in the grand scheme of things, if you're the type, well, I can't write a space opera because I only write hard sci-fi. Like, really, why? Like,
Well, that's there are different kinds of art styles. I was talking about this to someone in the Anthony Wheeler Discord, where he was like, when should I make my art scribbly? And I was like, you shouldn't intentionally make your art scribbly, you just make your art, right? But he's trying to do this stuff that's created from scribbles. And you've seen it before. It's like it's just different values, but they're doing this all over the page until they get to smaller parts and
right.
and refine it. And to me, that's just a technique. It's your technique. You might do that, whereas I wouldn't do that. So I was telling Anthony, because he was talking about drawing something. We were doing a life drawing, and I was saying, because he was talking about having trouble with proportion or something, and I was saying, so just turn your reference upside down and turn the picture upside down, then you're literally looking at it from a different angle. And he's like, I can't draw upside down because it messes with my mind and my brain. So I guess this is relating to what you're saying, because I think that that's totally valid. Some people can only write hard sci-fi. They don't have the imagination, or they don't have they don't feel like they can just freely create, right? And
Yes.
I think that's okay. That's like people that write historical fiction. So you can write fantasy that's based on historical fiction, where it's really close. George Martin stole a lot of his stuff from history. But you can also, I know of readers that don't like fantasy, but they love historical fiction. Why? Because they know that there's a legitimate outcome to something, and they have an expectation that there's going to be a true ending. So Bernard Cornwell was talking about that with George Martin, saying that he could never write fantasy because what he writes about, even though he writes fictional stories that take place against historical backdrops, he doesn't have to figure out what's going to happen because everything is already known what's going to happen. He's just filling in the time between, right? So his writing, his type of writing, is based on filling in the gaps in known quantities or known answers. So I think that applies to somebody that just wants to write hard sci-fi, where they maybe only can wrap their brain around the science if it's real science. Like they may not be able to imagine something and then keep true to their own rules, like the rules of magic, right? And that kind of makes sense to me. Like it's not saying that they couldn't do something that they don't if they tried, but it's saying that they're not comfortable doing it because they're more comfortable knowing something is real or true or whatever, and they can play out that example of how that works because they have a real understanding of the real science. Am I making my point, or am I just wasting time?
No, what you're saying makes sense. What I was talking more about though is if someone says they have an idea for, say, a space opera, but they feel, or whatever genre, but they feel like, but I don't write that because I write this, is a dumb idea. Like, if you have the idea, write it. And I don't know. I understand marketing wise that sometimes it might not be financially viable if you are kind of typecast, but I don't know. In this day and age of indie publication and all kinds of stuff like that, it seems to me like you might as well try.
And I think a lot of fans follow writers across genres anyway these days. Like I've seen a lot reach out and they write different genres. I know of one historical fiction writer who writes fantasy, but he writes fantasy under a pseudonym. And I think that's part of the reason why is because that whole name branding thing, which I don't know if I actually believe in. Like, Stephen King's a great example of that, unfortunately, where you can, he was able to write, and I don't know if, I don't know if I should say was, but he was able to write in several different genres and sell in several different genres.
Yeah.
And his name sells no matter whether it's mystery or crime or horror. Same thing with Dean Koontz. He was able to do that too. But I think, part of that is establishing that I'm not going to necessarily stick by your standards. I'm going to reach out. Koontz, believe it or not, he's written almost every genre that there is to write. He even wrote erotic fantasy and stuff. He's like, I'll never tell anybody the titles. And that's the same thing with Robert Silverberg. Robert Silverberg wrote under an assumed name. He wrote romance fiction and all this other stuff. But Silverberg's a brilliant. I think he's a master of point of view. I mean, if you've ever read Roma Eterna, it's a great example of using short stories to write a novel. To write, the tale is not just of one person; it's of a people. But some of them are in first person because they're short stories of those people. And some of them are not as close. It's not as close. What am I looking for? Not as deep penetrating of a point of view. I do not like that. And if you're wondering what that is, it's this.
Where's Eli? It's his job.
Is it that time? It is that time.
It is that time.
I was just gonna say, like you're yawning, and I haven't heard Eli yet.
Yeah.
But you realize I'm about to finish the second panel.
I know. I just thought it was funny. I was like, "Where's Eli?"
He could be upstairs. Like I said, his sister came to stay with us for a while,
All right.
and she's gonna probably be staying downstairs, but she might be upstairs talking with him or hanging out with him. His sister is one of his favorite people.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I think so. I wish there were better circumstances, but
All right. So I don't know if you saw my post about collaborating with my boys, but
on
Facebook. And
no, I mean collaborating on what?
anything really. I don't care. We were
Oh, so there's not a specific collaboration that you're talking about.
no, but
That's what I was asking. Because if you were posting about it, I thought maybe there was a specific one.
well, at the time I had just kind of worked through how to make dinner with my sons. That was fun, but I originally posted it and I forgot the word "my," so it said I really like working with young boys. I love the way they've grown into young men, and
Yeah, that could be.
yeah, I luckily no one told
That's
me.
why you're all making fun of what I said about the pipes.
Yeah,
You just had to have somebody else that you could say that about.
I just nobody pointed it out, so I caught the mistake before anybody told me. And if anyone saw the mistake and kept their mouth shut instead of making fun of me, thanks.
That's
But,
gonna say, thank you.
yeah, because it was embarrassing.
Who saw your mistake? Did you? Or did one of the
Yeah, I
boys
saw
see
it. I caught it. So, but it
wasn't like one of the boys that found it.
no.
Like, Dad, you sound like a perv.
It's exactly what I thought. It's like, ooh.
Oh shit! Did I edit? Click, 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 click. You're not editing fast enough.
Yeah, because I'm just hoping to fix it before anyone sees it or comments. And yeah. All those wonderful typos.
I think we're almost done with this panel. So a couple more shade lines on the runs, and I think I just need to darken the outline to the ladder a little bit, and that's it for that panel. Then there's one more panel left on the page.
Yeah.
Look at that. Well, I suppose I should color that in, but I'm not going to do that tonight. I feel like I've accomplished something. I want to let it go with that. I want to exit like I feel like I did something good.
Oh.
Whether or not I did. And the story gets one step closer to being a story.
Yep.
Yeah, one more panel here, and I think that's going to be a black and white panel. For the most part, there's probably going to be probably going to be sideways. I've got a couple of reference pictures that I'll have to decide from, but that's the next one.
Okay.
I was obviously hoping to get to it tonight because it would have been just sweet to finish this whole page off. I don't think I did too bad. I got 2 panels done, and that was a lot of measuring.
I know.
And I hate measuring.
Yeah, but it's looking pretty sweet.
All right. So everyone that watched, thanks for watching. Everyone that nobody commented, but comment after the video. That's great. We like that. Yeah. Like, subscribe, follow, all that stuff. And good night. God bless. Much love.
Peace.